Hello, good evening, and I'm gonna start this new series. As a European, I feel that the identity is being lost for us to unite, I would say, to be one coherent uh, continent, I would say. So, starting from now, we're gonna try to do some weekly, maybe two weekly, I don't know, we're gonna see the frequency, but just basically looking at some news articles, see what's interesting, and either it's dope or it's cope. And the cope ones are the articles that really don't matter to us. It could be that it's like starving children in Africa and it will say cope, and then it's just like that because, to be honest, we shouldn't care that much about it anymore. Whoa, cancel. Whoa, 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 whoa. This is gonna be a very cancel culture series for me. But we're gonna try to do it and we'll see how it goes. I don't know, it's just an idea I had. So I'll go through the news so you don't have to. Pa. So we're gonna use Feedly. It's basically an online RSS feed, so we can couple all different kind of news outlets, and then I'll make a board where I'll save the articles that I think might be interesting, and then we'll periodically read them and see if there's any dope stories in between. So I'm gonna get started and we'll start with this first one. Spain, thousands of protesters call for Sanchez to resign. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets in Madrid to call for the resignation of Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez over allegations. Okay, so it's a very short article. Basically, Pedro Sanchez is a left-wing prime minister at this point. He has his terms until 2027, but yeah, he's accusing the right of trying to slander him with allegations of his cabinet that is being corrupt. So it's not that new. I think that happens in all countries in Europe sometimes. It can be true, so it's not like it should be okay to do it. It's definitely not okay. But I guess it's pretty to expect it from time to time, I would say. Apparently 80,000 people went to the streets to ask for his resignation or to demand his resignation. And I think he hasn't really elaborated too much on it, what the corruption charges are. Let me find it out. So apparently it's a major corruption scandal known as the Coldo case. It involves allegations of irregular contracts, kickbacks and misuse of public funds, especially during COVID-19. I think that was really a very turbulent time, so a lot of misuse and special needs and special rules were applied during that time. Not to talk anything good, but just giving context to people that didn't live through it. I guess everybody lived through it because otherwise you'd be 6 years old. Key figures were Sanchez himself, Minister José Luis Albalos, Santos Querdan, and Coldo Garcia. So basically, few members of his cabinet were accused of being alleged with bribery, influence peddling, and criminal association. So it's pretty serious, I would say. If anything is true, I think it's going to the courts now because one of the judges ordered the pre-trial lockup of José Luis Abalos. So that's pretty rough, I would say. So yeah, dope story. I think we have to keep an eye on it, especially it's in Spain, right? Yeah, Spain. So especially for Spanish people, damn, I have to get used to speaking in English this much. Anyway, let's get to the next story. Alright, basically this article is a real-time follow-up of how the conversations for getting the peace treaty in between Russia and Ukraine is going along. Apparently, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mark Rubio, Steve Witkoff, a special appointee from Donald Trump, and guess what? Son-in-law of Trump, Jared Kushner, have a meeting about this peace treaty or peace deal that Trump set up. It was a 28 point. I don't know what all the points were. I don't think it really matters because for Europe I think it's a little bit too ambitious to say yes to it, as it would be basically saying to Russia like, hey, take the land, you can have it, you're stronger and we don't want to fight you, which is also like true for us, I would say, but we don't want to appear too weak, hopefully. So I see some comments below. There is a reason why Trump rather be out of the NATO. Luckily, is that not something he can do himself. What Russia is actually saying, we can do it all, but you cannot do anything in return. Ingrid Molen zegt dat om de halen en Eddie de Sager zegt dan weer, Russia has started this war with Ukraine with one clear goal, the capture of Ukraine and the surrender of the regime of Zelensky. If this comes with relative peace, if this happens, there will be relative peace, but Putin wants more apparently. Lux Schepens daarentegen zegt, nice word, peace. very, very sarcastic, I would say. Bert van Geffen, Europe must allow that there will be a referendum underneath the citizen. Not there. How do you say it? Not there. Their will is not law. Okay. Damn. People like to comment on these things. Is there not something 2100 reactions, bro? What are people doing on Ireland? Whatever. Okay, so it's not really a good story, I would say. I would say a little bit of coke. I don't really care too much, as it's not in our best interest right now to accept this plan. Hopefully there will be some interesting development that we can actually take part in or have an opinion about, but for now it doesn't seem that we are getting anywhere near a peace deal. Alright, next. Why university lectures are turning to AI in classes. Okay, this is definitely a COPE article. Basically their point is, okay, there are a lot of hours that are not being paid to prepare a lecture, so we should use ChatGPT to speed this up, and hopefully this will fix the problem. I don't think it's anywhere close to fixing the problem. Obviously more teachers are the solutions, but yeah, even in Belgium that's difficult. We're losing teachers left and right, and they're stripping away any of their perks, so yeah, it's not looking too great for teachers in Belgium. I hope it's different in other countries, let me know. Alright, next article. Study claims to provide first direct evidence of dark matter. Alright, so basically there is some weak evidence to say for potential dark matter existence. Totani, which is a Professor Tomonori Totani, an astrophysicist at University of Tokyo, um, analyzed some gamma ray spectrums from the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope, which is owned by NASA. So they're detecting the most energetic photons in the electromagnetic spectrum. And he said that there was like a dark matter halo radiating from the heart of the galaxy, which is a theory that all the galaxies, or the ones that we know of, consist of dark matter in the center of it, which would be so heavy that it actually explains why everything is turning around it. So it's not really something that has been proven yet. It's more of a concept that in order for everything to float in this kind of spherical way, that there must be some heavy, dense substance in the middle of it for the attraction, basically. So this is pretty dope. I think I think it's weak evidence. I don't know anything about it, but another prof is saying it's weak evidence. But it's kind of interesting to just think about it, like how many stars there are in the galaxy and how dense this center must be in order for all these stars to revolve around it. So yeah, it's pretty nice, dope. Changes in solar energy fueled high-speed evolutionary changes, study suggests. Pretty cool. This article doesn't really go into depth. Basically, it's saying that because of changes in the intensity of solar energy, that plants would differ in the amount of oxygen they release and therefore differ in the evolutionary gaps that we are taking on the planet. So in order for animals to thrive, there needs to be oxygen, and oxygen is only there if there are enough plants to sustain it. So that's basically the article, and it's pretty cope because it's not in that a whole lot. Online ghost stores capitalizing on Christmas and Black Friday sales to lure shoppers. Pretty cool article. Basically, it's saying that there are a lot of ghost brands and stores that is being created by AI. So Shopify and Facebook don't really have too strict policies on that one. So a lot of stores are just being made with an AI, and it uses existing brands and existing marketing of other companies, which is, I think, illegal, I would say, but they can't really do anything about it. Yeah, it's not so clear, but pretty cool article. I don't really care too much. ChatGPT firm blames boy's suicide on misuse of its technology. Okay, so basically there are ways of circumventing, ChatGPT. So in order for it to give actual advice on the things you want to know, which are sometimes illegal or harmful for yourself, there are different ways of doing it, like using a poem or suggesting that other people are doing it and you want to help prevent them and the ways to prevent it. So this guy used ChatGPT over several months, and apparently, according to the lawyer, he killed himself by months of encouragement from ChatGPT. I think it hits a real problem that there is way more information to be claimed now, even misinformation. You don't really know what's actually right and wrong on ChatGPT. So it is worrying that a lot of people can ask very stupid questions and get decent or not so decent answers to it. I would say most of them are correct and accurate and not suggesting to kill yourself, but there are ways of circumventing it. So it is a big problem, I would say. Apparently there are 7 other lawsuits going on to ChatGPT, so they're really getting slammed with different lawsuits about self-harm. It is a difficult topic. I still think the person asking the questions is responsible for actually committing the act, I would say. But yeah, it is a problem that we're all gonna face even more in the future. So there have to be some guidelines and laws to safeguard this technology. But yeah, as any new technology, when it comes out, it's a wild west. We had this with internet. I remember being 12-year-old, talking with people that were like 25 and just very toxic behavior to each other. It doesn't mean that it was bad for me. I think it's just a way that we have to work with the technology and put it in a frame that makes sense of how to use it, and not, if you put that context or that isolated case outside of that frame, everybody would say like this is inappropriate. A 25-year-old talking with a 12-year-old about fucking your mom or whatever. That's obviously not what you would talk about in the real life with those people, but that's just how it happened online, and that didn't affect me, I think, in any big way. So it's a bit of both. The person is obviously the end user, and they has their end responsibility, but it's difficult to say that this is only on them. Anyway, dope article. I think it's good to keep this relevant, because it's only gonna be more relevant in the future. EU ramps up pressure on Shein over childlike sex dolls. Okay, so Shein, basically this fast fashion trend company that took the whole world by storm. It's a little bit like Temu, but I guess for fashion. But apparently lately they have been selling illegal weapons and childlike sex dolls. Obviously this is very disturbing, especially for Europeans, I would say, because usually we have way stricter rules and guidelines for consumer protection laws, or something like that. So apparently the French government discovered this, and they are now investigating the company under the bloc's Digital Services Act, which requires online platforms to do more to protect users with the threat of hefty financial penalties to those that don't comply. That actually sounds very weak, to be honest, if I read this last part out loud. Hefty financial penalties. In the EU context, that doesn't mean shit. So I think we need some more criminal penalties or anything like that if we're gonna harm our own children. So yeah, Shein was made in 2012 already, so it's 13 years old. Damn, it's going fast. It originated from China, but now the headquarters are in Singapore, but still a large portion is manufactured and produced in China. I think, this is clearly how we Europeans protest. We just hold this and then we're like, okay, we did our job. I have nothing to say about that because I've never done it, so I'm even worse than doing this. But apparently this is all we can do in Europe, I would say, unfortunately. So I hope they're gonna do anything more serious than a slap on the wrist with financial penalties. But yeah, usually that's how the companies get away from European law. Just pay them and leave them alone and do something else, I guess. Dope. Going green. Will high energy costs derail Europe's climate goals? Alright. This article is basically Morningstar doing a deep dive in the electrification of Europe, because the EU wants to be front runners in decarbonization, basically reducing the CO2 levels by 55% compared to 1990. This is to be achieved by 2030, but so far the projection is that we will only reach a maximum of 25% reduction in carbon by 2030, which is far below the 55% we needed. Basically, the big problem is that we don't have enough electricity consumption for real investing of big companies to electrify their grids, their infrastructure, and also for residential people to install the heat pump, for example. It's way too expensive if not enough investment is made in that to develop it cheaper, for example, or other options to electrify our grid or improve our electrification of our grid. So we have two policies that are coming into play. So we will have, policy to support EU's carbon pricing to residential heating would normally start in 2027, but this will push the electricity price even higher, which will mean people will probably not vote for any politician that is going to support that policy. And also there's a lot of companies struggling, as we all know, especially the chemical industry, which is hard to get by with these higher electricity prices. So we are losing competitive advantage in our big sectors like chemicals and steel to US and China, which makes even tougher for our economy to retain this economy boost that we had before. The golden ages, I would say, for the previous generation. So our generation is a little bit more fucked in that sense. We have, though, the electrification of the car industry. I think it was only 25% of the cars that will be electrified by 2030, which is a quite big 45%, sorry. 45% of auto sales in Europe will be by electric vehicles. This is pretty big share part, I would say, but obviously they're accounting for, we don't have CO2 emissions on the road, but yeah, the CO2 emissions will be where it's produced, and that's in China or whatever, where the batteries are actually made. So we're just shifting our CO2 emissions to another country and then saying, we are doing very well. So this is also like very stupid actually to calculate it this way and to say that we're doing well. Another problem that we're seeing is that the chemical sector will shrink by 10% in the next 5 years, but especially the production of hydrogen, green hydrogen, will also be far below the projections that we wanted to set by 2030. So Morningstar calculated we will have about 0.6 megatons of green hydrogen production, which is actually far below the target of 10 megatons, especially because of high power prices, which are needed to convert water into hydrogen, which is obviously where all these problems are arising. We have too little sources of cheap electricity, and the ones we have, like coal and gas electricity, are actually not beneficial for the emissions then, so that we're not doing that part as well. And so we have to invest big amounts of money to make like nuclear reactors or something, in order to get a lot of energy that are also not CO2 heavy, which is very difficult because you cannot like make a nuclear reactor in 1, 2, 3 like that. So it's a bit awkward for us, I would say. We are paying the price for trying to be these front runners of, oh, let's electrify our whole country or whole continent, but we're actually becoming less competitive in the global stage. Households are paying higher prices for electricity, and companies are slowly disappearing because of it. So yeah, it doesn't look very good. I think the only countries that are doing a little bit better are the Northern Europe, so Scandinavian countries, I would say, France and the Iberian Peninsula. I don't actually peninsula. Where is it actually located? Ah, it's Spain and Portugal. Okay, so they have probably a lot of solar power, and that's why apparently Spanish utilities significantly outperformed in 2025. So I guess they are big providers of electricity to the grid, and because not all the countries can make so much electricity, we have to buy a lot of it from neighboring countries. It's not good for us, but maybe for Spain and stuff, it's good. But overall, Europe is gonna struggle very hard to 2030 at least. 2030. Anyway, dope article, good to know. Is it the beginning of the end for animal testing? Whatever, this is too early, cope. They want to phase out animal usage with AI, but yeah, let's just not entertain that idea for now. It's way too early for that. We can't even barely make AI do regular tasks at this point, so let alone things we don't know yet. Alright, CATL and Stellantis break ground on Spain's largest EV battery plant. This sounds interesting. It's very interesting. So the second largest car maker, Stellantis, and Chinese EV battery giant CATL are building a large lithium iron phosphate battery plant in northern Spain. So as I was saying, usually all the batteries are made in China, but as of now it seems like they're trying to shift that idea to get more jobs back to Europe. So I think this is like the third plant. There is one in Germany, one in Hungary. It's expected to begin in coming months. And then there's gonna be a new one in Spain to actually produce these car batteries in Europe again, for the first time, I would say. There is a little bit of backlash over Chinese workers doing the construction, but whatever, I think that's just something the companies will have to figure out for themselves. The plant will run entirely on renewable energy and is scheduled to begin production by the end of 2026. So that's pretty fast actually. And it will output 50 gigawatt hours of the LFP batteries per year. I don't know if that's much or not. It's not much. Let's ask ChatGPT and see what he says. He's thinking for the moment. So basically, in order for Europe's energy transition, Spain is going to be a really important player, I think, because where was it? Apparently, Spain has generated more than half of the electricity from the renewable sources last year. So that's a pretty big portion of their energy comes from renewables. The only downside is that we're going to be heavily reliant on China as always for importing the raw materials, solar panels and green technologies. So I guess it's good that we're not fixed to US that much, but yeah, basically CATL has a lot of supply chain investments, for example mining in lithium, nickel and cobalt, in China, Indonesia, Bolivia. So they're like the actual big players, and then they're now trying to get jobs to Europe by making these batteries in Europe, which is good, I would say, especially because then we can also maybe calculate the CO2 emissions more correctly that way. I don't know, but that might be a step in the right direction actually. So very nice to hear. Let's see about this question of 50 gigawatts. 50 gigawatts is a lot, but not enormous. 50 gigawatts. 8,033 cars, 1,000 cars per year. So I think that's a lot, right? A very significant supply. Yeah, that's actually quite a big plant, I would say. So that's gonna be really, really nice to see. Yeah, happy about this. Very dope. From bans to chat control, Europe's uneasy quest to regulate childhood online. What's this about? Okay, so it's a pretty big article. Basically, the difficulty is where do we draw the line? So there's a lot of young people that are getting more and more attracted into this online world. I can tell myself like how much more I'm sitting behind the PC, like right now talking to the to the camera instead of going out and being with people. So there is this question, where do we draw the line? Are we gonna impose a wide scale ban for youth, or are we gonna restrict certain sites? And then the question is, like, if we restrict these sites, there will still be access for them, and they will also be more hungry to gain access to these sites, especially through elder people or like people of age that can sell them or let them use their accounts. So it's a pretty difficult problem, especially to consider that tech companies want to engage stimulation and conversation of youth because they are the ones that use these online platforms the most. So it's really difficult to say to companies like, hey, you're gonna make less money, please ban these and these and these things. There's always gonna be like some way to circumvent these rules and these decisions. So the idea is maybe more education for some countries, they're arguing. But I think the overall trend is that they can link more extremism and radical behavior to people that are being disassociated from certain societies. So mass shooters that are having online profiles that are very toxic and isolated from reality. And this is a trend that all countries are seeing in their own way. Some are graphy stuff. So there's problems on all sides, on all different spectrums about this online world that we're all living more and more in. So the question arises from where do we ban and where do we regulate? It's gonna be a long conversation. It's a dope one to have. The article's dope. France plans to revive voluntary military service in 2026. Okay, it's pretty dope. So basically, EU countries are waking up to the threat of Russia, and then especially the NATO countries, the NATO members. So they're trying to speak to the youth by persuading them with some money, like, hey, this is gonna be good pay. You can come voluntarily to the militaries for 18 and 19-year-olds in France, for example. And this would last only 10 months. But the idea is, once you get inside the military, it's maybe easier for them to stay there or to become a reservist. And that's how they're gonna try, that's their plan to increase their amount of militaries people that they have in the country. This is also something that Germany is considering, and funny enough, our defense minister from Belgium just urged 17-year-olds to consider military service. I think they just sent out a few letters to people that were of age, and they were like, hey, you can join the military and you will be well paid. But yeah, I think we need to go back maybe to compulsory service like Austria, Cyprus, Croatia, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Greece, Latvia, Lithuania, and Sweden. I don't think it's a bad idea. I would say it's easy for me to say because I'm older already, so I don't have to go back to the military, and I never had to. But somewhere I think it would have been good for me to have like more structure at a younger age. But it's a double-edged sword, because I also had one of the best times I ever had during those years as a student, just living the life and doing your own stuff, exploring all the possibilities. So, but yeah, I think there has to be some engagement or idea to speak more to the youth, because I think a lot of people actually like having this goal or this community where they can be part of. I think more and more people are being disconnected, so to create these kind of communities where people can get together with other people of their age and earn some money, I think would be actually a very good way of incentivizing young people. The question is, should it be mandatory? I'm split on that one. I think somewhere it's necessary, because otherwise we're not gonna get to the numbers we want to have or need to have for the NATO. But it's also maybe a little bit detrimental for the young people to all join the army. I don't know. I guess some generations have done it and they turned out fine, so why not do it again? Dope. A step change. Tech firms battle for undersea dominance with submarine drones. Very interesting. So, the war with Ukraine has shown that drones are a big part of warfare nowadays. So, instead of the land, it's now moving to the sea more and more. Especially because like submarines are a big threat to any nation that's at the seafront, obviously, at the seaside. So now they're building uncrewed underwater vehicles, uncrewed vehicles, basically drones for the water, that are able to navigate the seas, patrol it, analyze where the cables are, the pipelines are, what strategic points to hit. So it's kind of interesting that instead of the air, we're now going to have to think about sea and protecting our seas, our cables from being cut. So there's actually one company, BEA Systems, that is apparently well positioned for this. I've looked up their stock price, so this might actually be a steal for 2030 stock pick. But we'll have to see that in moonshot picks maybe one other time. So yeah, all the big countries are doing heavy investments in these uncrewed underwater vehicles, and yeah, obviously they're not too cheap at this moment, so there has to be a lot of improvements for it. But yeah, it's gonna be crucial for getting our utilities across the oceans to each other. Apparently, we have two strategic chokeholds to make sure Russia doesn't get to our connections with the US, and that's the Greenland, Iceland, UK connection, where more and more Russian submarines have been spotted for mapping our for pipelines and stuff. So it's just kind of worrying in the sense that they might actually do more and more sabotages, which are a little bit too low to declare war or too little to declare war, but they're big enough to cause any major problems for some countries. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that the war is shifting towards water now actually. Dope. Africa's forest transformed from carbon sink to carbon source, study finds. Okay, this is a COPE article. Basically, it's things we already knew, that there are more and more farmers illegally cutting forests and contributing to climate change even more by getting rid of the trees and also burning the trees and the land, releasing all the captured carbon. So something also happening in the Amazon, unfortunately, at large scales, but it's very difficult because there was like a documentary I saw about the Amazon where it's like actually people are depending on the Amazon for their income, and a lot of the arbeiders, what's the word? Arbeiders. A lot of the labor workers are actually dependent on cutting these logs to have an income, and otherwise they would not have an income or there would not be enough jobs for them. So it's not that easy to just say, oh, don't cut the trees then, because it's also for them a big resource that they can utilize and cut down to sell to other countries. So it's kind of difficult. New agreements signal deepening EU Central Asia economic ties. Alright, so I think the only dope part about this is the actual agreements they signed. So they had 6 of them worth nearly 100 million. To be honest, I'm a little bit underwhelmed about the amount. It may be a lot for this setting, but I guess in the world scheme or in the world stage it's quite little. So data for critical raw materials, 7.5 million, modernizing geological data to attract investors. Secure critical raw materials, 3 million, building transparent supply chain for critical raw materials. Grow CRM, 3 million, developing new CRM projects with the EBRD. EBRD is, I guess, something European. There's no real explanation about it. Here, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So, okay. RLC project, 8.8 million and 40 million in loans, restoring degraded ecosystems. So I think this is like we're mining a lot and getting a lot of the resources from Central and Southeast Asia, and is actually affecting their ecosystems, which we should also help in preserve in a way. So I guess that's why we're giving the loans and the money. And then we have BOMKA, 12 million, and CADAP, 80 million for border security and tackling drug traffic. So not sure why it's being lumped in with critical raw materials, but maybe it's like a quid pro quo kind of thing, like, okay, we need your materials, but we'll also help you increase your security for being a more aligned partner and being less drug dependent or something. I don't know. It's kind of interesting that they lump in these agreement with the other ones. So interesting, dope, I think, to just know, but yeah, it's not the most dope thing I've read so far this day. EU member states back von der Leyen's controversial trade deal terms under pressure from Trump. It's very interesting, very dope. So as people know, last summer von der Leyen accepted this quite extraordinary terms with the US that we would pay 50% tariffs on any product, industrial product they ship to us, and that they would pay zero duties on any product that we bring to them. So everybody was saying like, oh, we got effed in the butthole and whatever. Apparently the deal still has to be approved by the European Parliament, so they're trying to change the terms because I think three big things are not in there. The so-called sunset clause, which is a mechanism that would end the tariff concessions after a period of 5 years if the deal is not renewed. So that's one is not in there yet, so it can mean that after 5 years we can still get fucked over. Another one was that there also will be a clause allowing the Commission to suspend the deal if the US fails to implement it, to temporarily halt the agreement if US imports surge and disrupt the European single market as a result of tariff concessions. So I think those three terms have still need to be added for the Parliament in order for them to be like, okay, we're gonna accept this this trade deal. But certain high-ranking members of the EU diplomats of the Trade Committee are still skeptical. No, of the Council. So we have the EU Council and the EU Parliament. So both have to agree on this trade deal. The EU Council is headed by von der Leyen, I think. And the Parliament is then the one that's now saying like, okay, but we need more safeguards in there so that we don't get fucked over on a later time. But they're still scared that if they want to implement these policies, that they would unleash another round of escalation from Trump. So they're gonna have to thread a needle on this one. I don't know if we're gonna get any better deal, so I think we have to take some deal. I don't think we can really wait for the Supreme Court of the US to make any decision on whether it's legal or not to impose these tariffs. But either way, we have to make sure that Europe has a united idea of what we want to do when other aggressors or big countries bully us like this. So I think it's good that the US does it, because if China would do it, I think we would be way more more disrupted than the US. But what do I know? That's just my feeling that a lot of our materials and resources come from China, and that US is more of a big brother that provides very high-end products, which are also necessary, but maybe not as critical as what China provides us, I would say. So very dope, very interesting article, good to know. Europe's water reserves drying up due to climate breakdown. Okay, very dope, very interesting. There is like satellite data about underground water storage. So basically you have above ground water, which is like rivers and lakes and stuff. But usually where the drinkable water and the water for agriculture comes from is from groundwater, so below the ground or in the ground. And apparently the northern countries, except for Norway, are getting a lot more weather, so more underground water. And all the rest of the Europe is kind of getting less of it, which means that we're gonna be utterly fucked in a few years when we have to ration all the water we have. This is because apparently there is more water during the summer, but because the soil is very dry, the water doesn't really seep through, and it's just run away into the ocean, I would say. And in the winter, when the ground is more penetrable for water, there's actually less rain apparently. I haven't noticed, but the data shows it, and that's why we're actually getting less groundwater over time. This is a study from 2002 to 2024, and we can see, I don't even know, I guess this is just a scale from 10 to 10, not really with any metrics surrounding it. I think the only co-part in this article is that there is not really any solutions being given. They only say that there is like an increase of water usage by 6% between 2000 and 2022, which is honestly not that much, I would say. I expected it to be more, but they are like saying, oh, we have to just modernize, make a smart water economy. So I would say the article is actually coping a little bit. I think it's an interesting and it's necessary to share this data, but the solutions they are trying to reach is actually very copium. So yeah, cope. Mass protests in the central German town of Gießen against new AfD youth group. Okay, kinda interesting, kinda dope. So basically, leftist groups and leftist extremists have been protesting against the rise or the creation of a new far-right alternative for Germany party, AfD. So I think this is happening in a lot of countries, is polarization of political spectrum. This means that you're either very left or very right, and nobody is being called centrist and stuff anymore. So I myself like to believe I'm more in a center, so I try to listen to both sides and see which ones is actually having good points and not, instead of just arguing about one side being right and other side being wrong. So they took to the streets, they protested, basically what protesters do. I think the big problem was that originally the AfD political group was associated with Young Alternative, which is apparently a very right extremist group, which was proven by Germany's domestic intelligence agency to be an extremist group, so they were classified as that, and AfD was also associated with them, so they were also classified as extremists. But they started a legal battle and now they want to rebrand, so I guess that's why the Germans took to the streets, because obviously there's a very historical meaning about right fascism in Germany. I think we don't have to go into detail about that. So it's somewhat good, I think, to put this more in the spotlights, like, hey, be careful, there is right groups arising and they're talking to the youth in order to mobilize these young persons. But let me refrain this in a little bit broader context, that actually a lot of political organizations are doing this because the youth are being more dissociated from real life and more associated with online groups and online ideas. So there has to be a shift in how you reach these people, how you can talk with them, how you can make them share their opinions and what they stand for. And so a lot of political organizations are actually focusing on specific youth groups in order for them to share their opinions and get them to vote for them, obviously. So I think this is happening in a lot of countries across Europe. but that doesn't mean it makes it right. A good point they did bring, and which is also something I find in Belgium to be true, is that right-wing groups or far-right-wing groups, whatever term you want to call it, are always being shunned and always being put down, like, oh, nobody wants to be with you, nobody wants to form a coalition with you guys, we don't even want to talk with you. And I think that idea is very frustrating for a lot of people. It's making them being more extremist, I think, being more drawn to this far right ideology. I don't know, ideology, whatever, you get what I want to say. So that's actually counter productive to be labeling them and don't want to work with them, because now they feel drawn to make their identity more whole and more known and more heard. So it's a pendulum that's swinging the other way around now, and all the countries are feeling it after Trump got elected, obviously. So very dope to read about. Yeah, good article. Israel has de facto state policy of organized torture, says the UN report. Alright, dope reporting. Basically the UN formally saying that there is a lot of things going wrong during the Gaza Israel war, the Palestinian-Israel war, or one-sided war. Actually, it's a genocide, to say the least. The UN committee has seen torture by severe beatings, dog attacks, electrocution, waterboarding, use of prolonged stress positions, and sexual violence. This reminds me of the movie from Guantanamo Bay with all the 9/11. I don't know what the name was again, but it was a pretty good movie. It was pretty sad, also pretty shocking to see how far they would go sometimes. They also they were in administrative detention, 3,474 Palestinians, which means they didn't get any trial. They say that the criminal responsibility imposed by Israel is the age of 12, but there were apparently also children younger than 12 that were detained. I think about 75 of Palestinians had died in custody during the Gaza war, which is high, but honestly I expected more. Not that I'm disappointed, just I expected it to be even worse than it already is. There were very little charges. I think there was like only one charge for torture or ill treatment in a 2-year period by an Israeli soldier that repeatedly attacking bound and blindfolded detainees from Gaza with his fist, a baton, and his assault rifle. And that guy only got 7-month sentence, which is kind of a slap on the wrist, obviously. And the whole report actually comes after this video.
Footage has emerged on Thursday,
which is basically 2 guys from a jihadist movement from Palestinian that are surrendering. You see them having their hands over their head, and then they're like told to go back inside, and basically this guy shoots them at very close range. So this is something that has sparked a lot of debate and push from the UN to actually do something about it, which is clearly a very grave murder charge, I would say, because they were already surrendering, and then they were told to crawl back inside, and then they were just shot at point blank range. Very dope to read, a good article, but not so dope what's happening, obviously. So this dope or cope, it's gonna confuse a lot of people, so I'm gonna get misinterpret and whatever, but we're just gonna roll with this. I'm gonna go over this one very quickly. Zelensky faces mini revolution as Jemark's fall reshapes Ukraine's wartime power system. Basically, there are a lot of people looking into the cabinet of Zelensky, that there is a lot of corruption going on, funds being misused, some illegal practices and diplomacies being used for getting weapons, and I guess also putting money in their own pockets. I don't know the specifics, so I don't want to assume they're all doing it, but I know one of his cabinet members, a very important, his right hand, has been stepping down from his role because of these charges. Airspace Venezuela, okay, whatever, cope. Nature's original engineer scientists explore the amazing potential of fungi. Let's get some, hopefully, more positive news in. Okay, interesting. So, in order to tackle compostation and the difficulty with a lot of very hard plastics, comes with ideas from Jairo Diaper, which is actually putting freeze-dried fungi in the Pampers, so that if when they end up in the landfill, that it's actually kickstarting the breakdown of the nappy. So plastics and all are broken down into compost within a year. It's actually quite fast, I would say. So this is a groundbreaking innovation, and I think it's one of the most interesting things I've seen. There is also a chemical bacteria, a bacteria that broke down chemical plastics that was discovered in, I want to say China, but I don't know the specifics anymore. So it's nice to see that a lot of scientists are working on these plastic problems that we have, and how we can get smart solutions by implementing it close to the source to actually break down these plastics pretty fast. Not out of love, but out of necessity, India and the EU counting on each other for global to survive the global storm. So India and EU want to get an economic and strategic alliance together. I don't think there will be many details into it, because we haven't heard anything that crazy. But it's good to see that Europe is actually not just taking it from the US, that we're actually looking for different partners and showing the US that, okay, we're gonna take it for now, our ass is a little bit spread, but in the future we might get closer and closer until it doesn't fit anymore. A lot of services are already in India, 45% apparently. The trade between India and the EU risen the last 10 years with 90%, which is quite a lot actually. I didn't know that India was that big of a trade partner with us. I wonder what kind of goods we're actually buying from them. Probably a lot of like palm seeds and whatever, palm oil and stuff, I would say. So we're transporting about 60 billion euros each year, and investments up to 135 billion. We invest about 101 billion in India, and India invests 35 billion in Europe. So apparently we export a lot of, or we import a lot of gems and rare earth metals. I don't know if that's actually the translation. Precious metals, okay. So I guess that would be good to not fully be dependent on China after all, because that is gonna be the next big worry if we're gonna move away from the US a little bit more. Apparently also our frites, Cristo gets a lot of their fries from India apparently. Okay, so apparently we already have this free trade agreement with India since 2005. That's pretty good. But yeah, it's not gonna be for this year. Green Deal. Okay. Nice to see that we're not only doing what the US wants and also looking for alternatives. Yeah, just to add a little bit more to the UN report from last from 2 ago. Apparently there was like inside information, not inside information, historication. I think he talked with a lot of the people that actually were plundering the supplies to Gaza, and they told him that Israeli army helped them do it before they even arrived at Gaza. So a little bit of insider corruption again, one of the many charges that's happening there, unfortunately. Indexbeperking, it's something Belgium. Vredesplan, peace plan, whatever. White House launches website to excoriate. What's that? Excoriate. To exterminate. Alternative for exterminate, okay. Media for buy stories. So basically, I can already tell this is Trump say, okay, left-wing news channels, we need to tone them down. We need to make sure no way that they would say anything else. So I'm gonna already claim cope. Hall of Shame, yeah, it's probably the same thing. Video showing naval drone striking Russian oil tankers in the Black Sea. So for those of you who don't know, I'll just quickly recap. There were like two black trade vessels from Russia with oil, two big ones, and they have been struck in the Black Sea near Turkey. Don't know what's gonna do. I think Russia has a lot of them, so I don't think it's anything major, but for Ukraine obviously it's a major victory, so good for them. More than 70,000 killed in Gaza since Israeli official. Yeah, okay, we already covered that. It's time to lock in and let your winter arc begin. Yeah, I remember this headline. I think it's very copious, but it's pretty funny that they're actually using winter arc. It's getting to be a buzzword actually. I've seen it on YouTube also a lot of times, so it's getting more and more used, the winter arc or the arc in general. This is UK news, I don't care. Protest against Boye. Minister Rob Beinders pulls on the alarm bell. We are the worst country for anyone with a handicap in Europe. I'm gonna be honest, don't take this the wrong way, but I think we're still miles and miles ahead of any other country in the world. So I'm gonna be honest, the alarm bell, the emergency ring for this aspect, I'm sorry, I don't see it. I'm not even gonna entertain this. This is pure cope. Okay, I've got baited. How long is this article? Okay, it's pretty short. The class war has already been fought out. Only the labor parties didn't really understand that yet. Okay, whatever. This is a very copious article. It doesn't really care for any one of the EU. But it's kind of funny because apparently Belgium has been for the 10th year in a row the number one in striking. So the amount of days that we go on strike in a year. Apparently our record was in 2014, which we had 221 days strikes. So I think this is across all the companies, obviously. I don't think this is the mean. So 2 in 3 days almost of our year, one or more companies were on strike in Belgium. It's kind of funny to think about that we have that much people going on strike, especially because France, which is thought to be the number one, I would have assumed, only has 99 days, which is also like 5 times more than the Netherlands, 19, and the Germans, 18. So apparently, if we calculate all the amount of days that we striked as Belgians, we have 4.1 million days that people in Belgium went on strike, and twice as many in Wallonia compared to the Flemish. It's kind of funny, but okay, it's cope, whatever. This is just to clickbait. Water shortage could derail UK's net zero. We already talked about water shortage. Trump turning the presidency into riches. I think we don't need to entertain it anymore. Everybody sees how blatant it is. But as the EU, I really don't care about it too much, to be honest. Let them figure out their own shit and we figure out our shit. Russia's disinformation campaign gains momentum, whatever. This is gonna be a nothing burger. This is something Belgian things, whatever. Honestly, maybe I wanted to read that one for myself, but whatever. I think this one was kind of interesting. How much and which ground is in your what's Gemeenте? In your county? Is that where the Gemeente is? County? Municipality? In your town. So how much is actually in the hands of the government? I think just to illustrate the map is kind of interesting. So this is agricultural. This is forest and stuff, industry. But where is this map on top? Why is it baiting? Oh, I don't like this getting bait behind. Ah wait, it's just here. Okay, let's look for my postcode. 11% of the ground is publicly owned. I don't know what it even means. Okay, whatever, it's not that interesting. Cope. China is bearing down Taiwan, enabled by Trump's weakness and vacillation. I think we all see this coming. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky about the illusion of free will. How did you be a person that chooses coffee or tea? I think we can talk about this a whole lot time, but we don't have much time anymore because I want to go to sleep, so I'm sorry you're not making the cut today. European unemployment, okay, it's interesting, but I think it's not going into deep because it was like an open question that's being asked. This is kind of interesting. An opinion is easier to fabricate than the reality is to dissimulate, or how do you say it? To fathom. So it's easier to make up a lie than it is to tell the truth, or to find out the truth. And that's really the basis of the whole shittery that's happening. Shit is happening in across the world with tech companies. Officially, kernreactor Duel 2 is after 50 years officially off our grid. This is one of our nuclear reactors that we desperately need right now, and it's been a long time coming. I think there are some structural issues with it that have to be fixed, so that's, I think, the reason why they decoupled it from the net right now. Let me check. Okay, so interesting. So apparently Duel 2, one of our 5 Kern reactors, is coupled with one Duel 1 that has already been terminated, and the safety concerns are getting too high to keep them to keep Duel 2 running. So that's why they're gonna that's why they turned it off. But we have 2 others that are still active, the Beinj 3 and Duel 4. For now they have the licenses to operate until 2035, but obviously most of the people want to prolong that, extend that, but I think it's a very tedious process. So people want to extend it, but apparently there's like so much page and documents necessary to make it happen. So there is like a very big bureaucracy linked to it, administration linked to it, that is maybe, yeah, it's maybe too much. I don't know who is protesting against. I don't know actually who is protesting against it. There is like an opinion in here. You can also go for more wind turbines and solar panels with the storage in batteries and gas-made electrical centrals. Like, who is even giving this opinion? We don't even care. Like, it's definitely not. Yeah, it's definitely not better for the climate. So EDF, the big nuclear powerhouse, is apparently lobbying to keep it open in Belgium. So that's actually a good thing that we have some international or like Euronational, I don't know how you say it, interest to keep our nuclear facilities open. So that's nice. Good article. Oh yeah, not really too much information, but good to know. Dienstplicht in Swiss. We don't care about Swiss because it's not EU. Fuck them, you don't want to be part of us, so we don't talk about you as well. It's a sketch, don't get too serious. Oh, I don't like these things. This we already talked about. Okay, we're gonna skip this. I'm sorry. It would interest me, but we don't care about the US at this point. Extra belastingen, it's a Belgium thing, whatever. The corruption scandal, we already covered this. Trump grants clemency to executive convicted in fraud schemes. So one of the big things that's going wrong in the US is all these pardoning and clemencies being given to actually like bad people. So I hope it backfires someday. Parents speak of despair after hundreds of school children kidnapped in Nigeria. Cope, we don't care about that, I'm sorry. En van belastingen, this is a Belgian thing, whatever. This is maybe nice. The VUB wants to make a supercomputer Sophia that can predict nature disasters like water explosion in Wallonia. I don't know what that actually means, so I'm kind of intrigued by it. Oh shit, I totally forgot about this, but apparently like in 2021 we had so much rain that 220 people died in Belgium and Germany. I totally forgot this actually. And this is one we couldn't, oh shit. It's one of the disasters we actually weren't able to predict in time, I guess. Damn, this is actually quite bad. I actually totally forgot that. So the VUB, it's like a university sub-branch that is gets subsidies from the government, is making a supercomputer to actually predict more accurately, train models more accurately for weather, medical appliances, or any other AI, whatever model they want to train. And it's basically like an rent-me computer where they want to go for like 80% occupation, that people say like, hey, we have this heavy model that we want to train, can we use your supercomputer to actually do this? So the Dutch government, or the Flemish government, has invested 8.6 million euros for this project. Quite nice. I think it's very good for us to not slum by in the supercomputer race. English water industry, we already talked about water. Animal testing, we already talked about. Greek farmers, okay, I'm sorry, we don't have time for that. OPEC handhaaft productie, don't care. En Ariana Grande krachtige shares a new message, another message for body shaming. I'm just gonna skip that without saying anything. Cope. Rage bait named Oxford Word of the Year. Hey, I like that. Some good news after all. Rage bait officially made it to the Oxford Dictionary. Alright, this was the speed run, 2 hours and 8 minutes. I think we're gonna do it a little bit different in the future, because otherwise I'm gonna have to do a lot of time into this one every time. So maybe I'll do like every day some articles, and then I'll get them all together at the end. But that's for now the news. I hope you enjoyed this first session, and I see you guys on the next one. Peace.